So really, if you're going to go looking for money, the first thing you have to do is know why you're looking for money. Okay? So you have to know your story. Because if you don't know your story, there's no way you're able to communicate that story to anybody else. And communicating your story is the hardest thing and the most important thing. Okay? And one thing, particularly if you're looking at web-based opportunities or mobile-based opportunities, one thing that you really have to get clear in your head is who is your customer. So there's a very simple definition. Who would like to volunteer for me how I decide who is my customer? Anyone?
Yep.
Just tell me, how do I know who my customer is?
How do you know who your customer is?
Okay.
Well, maybe somebody who pays? Yeah, who's going to pay your product?
Yeah, exactly. Right? And so when you think about Facebook, okay, I would ask, how many of you are on Facebook? Right, everybody, right? Not me. But you're not Facebook's customers, right? I'll give you something much closer to home. How many of you think that you're the business school's customers? Sort of half of you. And the other half are probably not saying it because you think it's a trick question. It's not a trick question, but I'll tell you, when I was here and I was active in the student government, we actually confronted the administration of the school. We said, we want these things and these things should happen, and hey, we're paying these expensive fees. We're your customers, you've got to do what we want. And they just laughed and said, you're not our customers. You pay for the privilege of coming here, but you're not our customers. Our customers are people who employ you. You're our product. Right? So that's a little bit more complex. And again, if you look at a web-based environment, your users are your users. And understanding the value proposition for the users is important because that's what you sell to your customers as the reason that they should pay you. So if you look at the simple model of something like Facebook, their customers are their advertisers. The only reason their advertisers pay to advertise on Facebook is because Facebook says we're going to have a lot of people and we're going to have a lot of information, so we can shape where your ad goes so you get a good audience, a well-focused audience, and that's why it's worth advertising. So I'm belaboring it because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and you'd be surprised how often they do not know who their customer is. So your customer is the person who pays you the money. And that's the problem you have to solve, customer's problem. That's the benefit you have to create, the benefit for the customer. If it happens that to do all of that, you have to solve the problem for the customer's customer, who may be your users, that's great, you have to do that too. It just means business is a little bit more complex. So knowing what pain or problem you're solving and who it's for, knowing why your solution is going to be different. Tomorrow I have to give a slightly difficult consultation for one of the grant applicants. It's a 19-year-old undergraduate who thinks that he is inventing a fantastic new search engine that's going to solve a whole lot of problems. And his search engine is, in fact, where search engines started out, but in the last century. But he's 19, so he has no idea that that's what happened. He hasn't studied it, he hasn't gone back to look at it, he certainly didn't live through it. So what it means is I'm going to have to explain to him that what he thinks is a great idea is, in fact, where it all started. And I have to now bring him along and show him why his idea is actually not innovative and is not competitive, because the customers, that is the advertisers for search, don't want what he wants to offer, which is something with no personal profile and so your privacy is protected. We all gave up privacy a long time ago as far as the internet's concerned. So understanding your value proposition, and then how you're actually going to execute. This one, how you're going to execute, that's where most of you would probably start. Most entrepreneurs start with the business plan. This is how I'm going to execute. If you don't know all these other things I've talked about first, you don't know what you're going to execute or why you're going to execute, and therefore how you're going to execute. So that's why it's not at the top of the list. It's critically important, because if you can't create a business model, the business model is a little machine where you crank the handle, something comes in and money comes out. That's the business model. The business plan is all the flesh on the bones of that, how that actually gets brought to market, connected to customers, etc. The actual business model, that's the basic mechanics of what your business is going to do to produce profit. Okay? And just to be clear, that's equally true if it's a not-for-profit business, because a not-for-profit business still has to make a profit. It just can't distribute the profit to its shareholders. The only thing that isn't true for is a charity Because a charity is not a business. It lives or dies on getting a donation every single day. It doesn't make a profit. It constantly runs at a loss and constantly asks for new money. We have charities, then you have not-for-profit ventures, which are very popular these days. If they have to make a profit, it's just called a surplus, because you're not allowed to distribute it. You keep it internal and use it to run the organisation. And then you have our for-profit businesses. Obviously, the team, you have to know why you're the right team, and if you don't have a special reason about why you're right, about why you are especially right team, that's okay. Just be confident that you're going to pull it off, but not arrogant that you're going to succeed. Be aware that there's a lot that you don't know, no matter how experienced you are. There's a lot that you don't know, so when you present the team, recognise what you do know, what you can do, and where the gaps are. Because if you're a startup, you've got a team of 2 or 3 people, you don't have a full team. You're not going to build a multi-million-dollar business with 2 or 3 people. Well, okay, you could in theory, but in practice it's very, very rare. So the chances are there's somebody else that you need in the team, other sets of skills. They may be contracted in, they may be hired in, but later on you're going to need more people in the team. So knowing that, recognising that, planning for that, actually offers you a chance to build a better execution model, because you execute where your strength is, and therefore you understand where you're going to grow in the future. And if you're looking for investment, investors invest for one reason. They give you a handful of money to get back a bucket of money. That's all it's about. That's investment. Investment is about getting a financial return, preferably a really big financial return. Okay? If you can't have some idea about how you're going to do that, then you're not ready to talk to investors. Right, now here we're only talking about for-profit businesses, just to be clear, because not-for-profit, you can't distribute a financial return, so let's, for the time being, let's agree that we're talking about for-profit businesses. The other thing about a return is more than just a wish. A return doesn't come by you saying, well, I'll buy you out in 3 years when I'm doing really well. Because if you're doing so well that you can buy the investors out, the investors won't want you to. They'll either want to stay in, or more likely they'll want to sell the whole business. Because if you could buy them out with what you're making, someone else will pay 3, 4, 5, 10 times as much to buy the whole thing. So buying investors out is not a very good proposition as a first answer. As a backup, if things don't go so well, investors are tired and would like to get out, well, that's a different story. You might find yourself put in a position where you have to do that. Certainly it's one of the things we put in our standard investment contract. After a certain number of years, if the business isn't looking like it's going like this, we say we want the option to say you're going to have to buy us out over the next 3 years at a very, very modest return. We just want to get our money back and put it to work something that is going to go like that. And of course, you can't just use great motherhood statements and wish fulfillment. You have to actually have some mechanics, some numbers that support whatever the story is. You can't say, well, there's 10 million people in the world who are all in the category of people who might buy my product, so I've got a market of 10 million people. You don't. Out of those 10 million, some are going to buy your competitor's product, so they're not going to be your customers. Some won't buy anybody's product, so they're not going to be. So whatever that big number is, you've got to figure out what the actual genuine addressable market is. That's what we call top-down market sizing. Then there's bottom-up market sizing. That's how you're actually going to execute your business. I'm going to sell 1 of these on the first day, and 10 on the second day, and 100 on the third day, etc. And that brings you to some number. So what's the significance of that? Top-down market sizing tells you there is a market worth pursuing. Out of 10 million people, there are 6 million who are all going to be my customers. And on average, going to be worth $100 a year. So I've got $600 million a year as a potential market size. That's a market worth pursuing. Bottom-up market sizing says that what I'm actually going to do is over the next 3 years, I'm going to reach 1.5 million of those people. Okay, so now I've got a $150 million market. That's a business worth pursuing. The fact that you can, when you get to the end of that exercise, express one as a percentage of the other, that's fine. But don't start your market size story by saying, there's 10 million people, and if I just get 1% of that market, I've got a great business. Because that's a load of rubbish. That shows you don't know anything about your market.